If you dig the twisted, admire the outlandish, and are enamored by the unusual, you're in the right place. True crime, the supernatural, the unexplained, now you're speaking our language. If you agree, join us as we dive into the darker side. You know, because it's more fun over here. Welcome to Total Conundrum.
Warning, some listeners may find the following content disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Ha 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 ha.
Hey, Conundrum crew. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Total Conundrum. I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Traci. Today, folks, buckle up because we got a wild ride for you. We're digging into the mysterious and laughter-filled world of the giggling grandma, Nannie Doss.
Ooh, sounds like a hoot. But before we dive into the giggles, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. And if you're on Apple or Spotify, give us a 5-star rating and a witty review. We feed on your feedback, folks.
Absolutely, Jeremy. And speaking of feeding, I hope Nannie Doss didn't include arsenic in all her recipes. Now, this lady was not your average grandma, folks. Nannie was well known for her prune cakes and brewing up something more sinister than just a cup of coffee.
Sinister cakes and coffee? That's a damn shame. And listeners, remember, if you have a story to share, we want to hear it. Drop us a line on social media or email us at contact@totalconundrum.com.
Now let's get back to Nannie. This lady was a black widow in disguise. She married and, well, unmarried, let's just say, multiple times. But you know what's even crazier? All of her husbands met their maker in unusual and mysterious ways.
Unusual, mysterious? Sounds like my kind of mystery novel. Did she use a poison, a secret trapdoor?
Oh, she had her secrets, Jeremy. But here's the kicker. After talking about all the deaths of each husband, she would burst into fits of giggles, hence the name, the Giggling Grandma.
Giggling and discussing their murders? That's darkly comical.
Darkly comical indeed, but it gets better. It turns out Nannie was also a pro at life insurance policies. She cashed in after each quote-unquote accident.
Air quotes.
Now, if that's not a total conundrum, I don't know what is.
I can't decide if she's diabolical or just misunderstood. Maybe a bit of both.
Ah, the age-old question. And listeners, if you have any thoughts on Nannie Doss, drop them in the comments below. We'd love to hear your theories.
Absolutely. And before we move on, a quick shout out to our podcast pals at Suspended Sentence and They Don't Stay Dead. We've traded trailers with them this week, so make sure to check out their shows and show them the love and support you show us.
Yeah, support your fellow podcasters, folks. We're like a big dysfunctional family. And if you want us to trade trailers with your podcast, hit us up.
Well, shall we dive into this roller coaster of mystery and giggles?
For sure. Let's dive in.
This is Traci.
This is Samantha.
This is The Suspended Sentence.
Grab your latte and join us as we enter season 2, starting January 1st of 2024.
A year packed full of serial killers that you may or may not have ever heard of.
Thanks for being there.
Stay safe.
Hey, Jeremy, how are you today?
Good. How are you, Traci?
I'm good. So are you excited to hear this story?
I'm ready to laugh.
I don't know how much giggling we'll be doing, but hopefully we'll be able to have.
Let's get our gigglies on.
So for new news.
New news?
New news.
Not old news?
Not old news.
Okay.
Well, it is kind of old news because we talked about it on the last podcast.
Okay.
So old new news.
Okay.
Does that work?
I don't care.
So we have merch, people.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yes, and turned out really cool. So go check out bonfire.com/store/total conundrum.
I want 10 of each.
I know, me too. I love the sweatshirts, look so comfy. I can't wait to get ours. And the hats too. They got nice quality hats and hopefully we can add some different things in there. We'll do that as time goes on. And then we're taking 2 on the attempt of videoing.
Yep. Take 2.
Take 2, the last episode.
Take 1 did not pan out.
No, it did not. Something happened with Jeremy's camera. So hopefully this one will...
if things go well, I'll be with you tonight.
Well, I hope you're with me tonight. Where else you going?
I don't know. Fishing.
Going fishing in the dark.
Fish. Oh, that's a good song.
Yes, it is. All right. Well, let's get into the Giggling Granny, Nancy Nannie Doss.
That was a good one. Never mind.
Not yet.
Okay.
Funny's coming. All right. So Nancy Nannie Doss was born on November 4th, 1905. Nanny was one of 5 children of James Hazel and Louisa Holder Hazel. She was born Holder Hazel. It kind of sounds like a
Swedish.
Lederhosen. She was born in Blue Mountain, Alabama.
In my knickerbockers.
I'd like to see a pair of knickerbockers.
I know, right?
Blue Mountain is in Calhoun County, and it's a small town situated between Anniston and Jacksonville. And she had 1 brother and 3 sisters.
What state are we talking here?
This is in Alabama.
Oh, did you say that?
I think so. If not, Blue Mountain, Alabama.
I was distracted by the giggles.
You were distracted by the lederhosen.
I had a case of the giggles.
In Nanny's earlier years, they were marked by challenging and she had a very challenging and distressing childhood. Nanny's parents were hardworking farmers, and hot-tempered Jim Hazel, potentially not even Nanny's biological father. There are signs that Nancy was possibly born before Lou got married to Jim or James. So throughout the story, I'm going to shorten. It kind of goes back and forth. I sometimes shorten it, sometimes I don't. Jim and James is the dad. Lou and Louise is the mom.
Okay.
So,
Not confusing at all.
I tried to keep it the same, but I just noticed right here I didn't. So I think most of the time I refer to the mom as Lou and the dad as James. But here maybe I should just do that paragraph all over again.
Sounds country to me.
Okay. As long as you're following.
I got the giggle part.
So right after Nancy was born in 1905, the census records indicated that Lou was living alone with her daughter, and it seems like James showed up later. But we don't know where he came from or exactly when he came into the picture. James exhibited abusive and demanding behavior. He was the boss, and if rumors were correct, he would not spare the switch on his daughters or wife to get what he wanted. But it doesn't say anything about his son. So his son must never misbehave?
I don't know.
Me either. So in contrast, Nanny's mother was well known for her loving and gracious demeanor, providing warmth and kindness to Nanny and her 3 sisters. Again, it said that they had a son, but in all of my research, it never references the son. So
probably because he's down locked in the basement.
He's the kid under the stairs.
Yeah.
Oh my!
He's like Harry Potter under there.
Oh my! The little cabinet under the stairs.
Yeah.
Oh, hopefully he has magic to keep him happy. He frequently kept Nanny and her siblings out of school for extended periods of time, assigning them household chores and tasks on the family farm. At the age of 5, Nanny had to chop wood, plow the fields, and clear the land of weeds and debris. When Nanny could go to school, it was no easy feat, for it was a 2-mile walk there and 2 miles
Barefoot
back.
in snow.
Uphill both ways.
Yep.
So when Nanny was 7, she and her family took a train to South Alabama to visit family. While on the trip, the train that her family was on stopped suddenly, causing Nanny to strike her head on the metal seat in front of her. Nanny claimed to have suffered a head injury from this, and in which this is what caused her to suffer migraines, blackouts.
She got brain damage.
Yep. Bouts of depression. She later claims this injury as a source of her destructive future behavior. Side note, I recently found out that I think I know where my speech impediment comes from.
Brain damage?
Brain damage. My aunt told me that she dropped me on my head when I was a baby.
Yeah, that was a good story.
Which she never told my mom.
Probably not.
So I probably have brain damage.
Well, we all do, so.
I'm sure we did something as a kid to cause it, rattle our brains. So as Nanny was entering into her teens, she found enjoyment and pleasure in reading her mother's romance magazines.
Ooh la la, Francois.
She would daydream about her own starry-eyed romantic future. She would eventually find the Lonely Hearts section to be her favorite pastime for reading. She would become almost obsessed with reading this section. She spent the majority of her life searching for glamour and romance. And the Lonely Hearts section is kind of like a modern day, male looking for female type want ads. So James, however, interfered with her head in the cloud fantasies, for he forbade Nancy and her sisters from wearing makeup and attractive clothing. Silk stockings were considered sinful, and fixed hair and form-fitting dresses were slutty. He also forbade them from going to dances, church-based activities, and other social events. He was determined that his daughters wouldn't attract any unwanted attention, and when the time came, he would often assertively state that he would be the one to choose the husbands for his daughters. On weeknights, the Hazel sisters would gaze sadly at the flickering lights emanating from a barn down the road where a dance was underway. Papa Hazel had forbidden them from attending, but they could...
Papa Hazel, come on!
Right, let the girls have some fun. But they could at least observe the lanterns flickering in time with the nearby mandolins and faintly hearing the distant stomping of the Blue Mountain youth having a great time. That was kind of a mouthful.
Tongue twister.
Big time tongue twister. Nanny, however, found ways to sneak away occasionally. She discovered that the hayloft or the corn crib was the only spot to make the boys happy and enjoy a little affection away from James Hazel's watchful eyes.
Uh-oh.
And then why not? The boys liked her dark hair, her dark eyes, her cheerful laugh. Besides, she was approachable. Even though Lou might have been aware of her daughter's adventures, she chose to remain silent about it. So little Nanny was a little promiscuous.
Nanny was naughty.
Nanny was naughty.
Naughty Nanny Nunnies.
In 1921, Nanny took a job working at the Linen Thread Company and quickly turned the head of Charlie Braggs. Charlie was tall, handsome, curly-haired, and he hung on 16-year-old Nanny's shadow, and he adored her.
But I bet he hated to brag.
James approved of Charlie, for unlike the other boys his age in Blue Mountain, he did not waste his time at parties, hanging out at cafes, or listening to the crazy jazzy records that were coming out of New York. Charlie's main preoccupation, even more than Nanny, was his mother. His paycheck supported her, and he treated her like the Queen of Alabama. Within 4 months of bringing Charlie home for dinner one night, Nanny was married to Charlie and was on her way to marital happiness. Years later, Nanny wrote, "I married as my father wished in 1921 to a boy I only knowed for 4 or 5 months."
Knowed?
Mind you, she only has about a 6th grade education.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Who had no family, only a mother who was unwed, and who had taken over my life completely when we were married. She never seen anything wrong with what he'd done, but she would take spells. She would not let my own mother stay all night. So instead of losing a strict father, Nanny acquired a mother-in-law of a similar nature. If Nanny desired to eat out and Mrs. Braggs didn't, the latter would feign dizziness or stomach cramps until her son gave in and they stayed home. Similarly, if Nanny suggested going to the bayou for a movie and Mrs. Braggs wasn't interested, the symptoms would resurface, leading to an evening spent at home playing mahjong on the kitchen table. Mahjong? Mahjong?
Mahjong.
Mahjong?
I
Okay.
don't know.
The Braggs had 4 daughters in 4 years, starting with Melvina in 1923, followed by Gertrude, then Zelmer. That is quite the name.
All of them are.
And-
Melvina?
Yeah, Melvina. And ending with Florine in 1927. We'll just call her Fluoride. No, Florine.
Rider.
That's good. The stress of taking care of babies, pleasing Mother Braggs, and cooking for a hungry husband took its toll on her. She turned to the family's liquor stash, and what started as an occasional smoking became a regular habit. Eventually, the built-up stress erupted, and she found herself confiding in strangers. In between pregnancies, she sought comfort in Blue Mountains bars, where drunk men made welcome advances, making her feel attractive. Her indiscretions were easier when Braggs was preoccupied with his other women on the outskirts of town. He would disappear for days, and she later admitted conveniently forgetting to be upset about his binges and hers. The marriage was rocky, mostly low, often reaching rock bottom. Despite finding dissatisfaction outside of the marriage, the physical aspect that could have held them together dwindled. Their time together decreased. They may, on occasion, be together once a week, like at the dinner table, and if they were, it was purely by chance. In early 1927, the Braggs lost their 2 middle daughters, both, says Terry Manners in Deadlier Than the Male, to suspected food poisoning. That's a quote unquote there.
Okay.
Each child seemed fine at breakfast, but had died by lunchtime. Although the local medics called their deaths accidental, Charlie Braggs wasn't convinced. He eventually had seen something wrong in Nanny's coal eyes up close. So he soon bolted, taking his older daughter, Melvina, his favorite, with him, and he left the newborn Florine behind. So, wait, Florine. How do you choose one child over the other?
I don't know.
I mean, did he just not want to take care of the newborn, or?
Probably.
Jeez. When her hubby left this time with...
Worst is he had suspicions that something happened to the other kids.
Right, and then you still leave one behind?
Leave that one behind.
I'm going to flee with her, and well...
She's a runt of the litter. She don't work as hard. I can't get her to plow the fields.
It just blows my mind. When I was researching this, a lot of the story blows my mind. But so when hubby left this time with Melvina, it wasn't just for his usual 3 or 4 days. He disappeared for months. Meanwhile, his mother had passed away, and he stayed away because he was scared of something. Not knowing where he went or if he'd come back, Nanny had to get a job at the nearby cotton mill to take care of herself and Florine. Charlie finally came back to Blue Mountain in the late summer of 1928, a year after he left. But he brought more than himself and Melvina. He also came with another woman, a divorcee, and her own child. Not many words were exchanged between the awkward adults, and Nanny got the hint. She packed her things, got her 2 daughters ready, and left, cursing Charlie, cursing Charlie's girlfriend, and cursing her own bad luck. So now he let his favorite child go with Nanny. No questions asked because he had a new
Workhorse, yeah.
boy. That's just crazy.
And why would she just leave?
I believe it was his house and his mother's house.
They're married, though.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. She, this is the one time I think she just kind of goes.
She's going to get revenge, probably.
I'm not sure. We'll find out.
She's plotting some stuff.
You
I
think?
can see the smoke billowing out of her ears. Right
So with no other option, Nanny moved back home with her parents and found a job at the cotton mill in Anniston, just outside of Blue Mountain. She worked long hours in the hot factory, but she didn't seem to mind too much, for it got her out of the house and away from her nagging parents. Grandma Lou enjoyed watching over her granddaughters and spending time with them. Nanny enjoyed the attention she was receiving from the boys at the shop. However, Nanny did not want to make the same mistake and marry another immature, wandering mountain boy who was a mama's boy. So she turned to the Lonely Hearts column in the local newspaper. She found one ad that caught her attention, and it was from a 23-year-old factory worker.
Wanted, solid man with good job. Apply here.
Pretty much. His name was Frank Harrelson. He wrote
Woody Harrelson's brother.
It would be probably his like great grandfather or something.
Could
be.
The age was similar. No.
He wrote poetry that wooed her, and he sent her a black and white photo. He was very attractive with his dimpled cheeks resembling Clark Gable, and he had wavy hair like Grant Withers. Nanny sent him a cake and a very risque photo of herself. Go Nanny.
Nanny locked up.
Once he received her package, he immediately drove from nearby Jacksonville straight to Blue Mountain. Wonder why.
Here comes her package.
When he arrived, he found an alluring young thing, more magnetic than the photo she had sent. The picture hadn't captured the twist of amour that sparkled so, and the passion in her black eyes. He proposed, and she said yes. They got married in 1929, but the whole time, alcohol was part of Frank's life. As the months passed, the honeymoon joy soon faded, and Nanny realized that her tall, good-looking husband with the square chin and rugged features was a massive alcoholic.
Like moths to a flame.
Like moths to a flame. Not only that, but to her dismay, she found out he had been in jail for a violent assault. Gentleman Frank was no gentleman at all. When Nanny married, this future disappointment would often deal...
She needs to start doing background checks.
Right.
Jeez.
When she got married to him, she would often deal with the Jacksonville cops showing up at her door regularly to tell Nanny that he was in trouble again for fighting drunk in the streets. They saw Nanny's dark face and understood her dark moods, sometimes sinister, every time she had to bring the wobbly and slurring Harrelson home from jail. Life went on strangely. Nanny suffered for many years. Her husband's drinking hardly let up. Even in his most drunken state, he'd hit her, but she tolerated it. He'd yell and threaten her growing kids for no reason, but she still tolerated it. Black and blue, lonely, and unloved, in tattered clothes and lace, she endured.
Yeah, she's going to tolerate it into the ground, I think.
This marriage lasted 16 years.
Jeez.
But don't get the impression that Nanny was a sympathetic character. Sherby Green reminds us of her cousin. She simply had not yet discovered how to rid herself of a husband, and that was to come.
She had to educate herself.
She did. Her daughters, Melvina and Florine, had since grown up and married. Melvina married Mosey Hayes, and the two had a son, Robert Lee Hayes, in 1943. And another baby followed 2 years later, but died soon afterwards, exhausted from labor and groggy from ether. Which, when I was researching this, I'm like, groggy from ether? Ether used to be used as a general anesthetic.
Yeah.
Make them not feel the pain or whatever. That just sounded weird to me that they used to use ether for that.
I don't know.
And it's also used as a recreational drug to cause intoxication. But I'm like, that can't be healthy for a mother to give her ether as she's giving
I don't
birth.
think any of that stuff was ever healthy.
That's probably true.
These guys are just like, well, let's see if this works. You know?
I mean, you might as well give her a bottle of whiskey and let her get
let's see if this works.
Yeah. So
Gasoline, let's see if this works.
just anything. Coke, let's put Coke into a drink and call it.
Or you got a scratch on your leg? We better amputate that.
Snake oil. It's all about the snake oil and mineral oils.
Then we'll brand it.
Yeah.
Cauterize the wound.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Just bite onto this piece of leather here. So from her groggy state, Melvina thought she saw her visiting mother stick a hat pin into the baby's head. A hat pin.
Ouch.
Yeah. When she asked her husband and sister for clarification, they were startled because they had seen Grandma Nanny toying with such a pin, turning it over and over between her fingers earlier in the evening. So they thought that she killed her baby, but didn't do a damn thing about it. Didn't question her, nothing. So
kind of weird.
Yeah. Approximately 6 months later, the mournful parents grew distant, and Melvina began seeing a soldier. Nanny didn't approve of him. During one heated argument with her mother, Melvina went to go visit with her father. It was during this time that her son Robert passed away under mysterious circumstances on July 7th, 1945, while in Nanny's care. The cause of death was determined to be asphyxia from unknown reasons. 2 months later, Nanny received the $500 life insurance payout she had taken out on Robert. Okay, let's back up here, people. First off, if you think you have any suspicion of your mother killing your infant baby, why would you leave your 2-year-old son with her just 6 months later?
Yeah, pretty hard to wrap your head around that one, though.
I'm like...
But yeah, I don't know. Must not have been too worried. Here, Ma, take this kid too, will you?
Oh my God.
Try not to kill this one.
It was crazy. That whole thing is crazy.
1800s.
Yeah.
So.
18. It was the 1800s.
Oh, 1800s?
Yeah.
Haven't you said that?
Oh, no, we're in the 1900s now. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. In the following month, as stated by crimelibrary.org, in August 1945, the last of the enemy powers, Japan, surrendered, and the nation thought of one thing: to welcome home its fathers, brothers, and sons in every state in the Union. There was a hauling and a bunting and balloons and all-around ecstasy. Alabama was no exception. On the night of September 15th, 1945, Frank Harrelson went out to the tavern to welcome home some friends from overseas. Tonight, patriotism had given him an excuse to get loaded. Arriving home, he was still in a festive mood, and he wanted sex, fireworks style, and he wanted it fast. When Nanny refused, he slammed the wall with a ham-sized fist and shouted, "If you don't listen to me, woman, I ain't gonna be here next week."
Bye.
She listened to him just to avoid a broken jaw.
Oh.
As they had sex, Nanny stared at the ceiling and vowed to get even, author Terry Manners declares. The next day, tending the little rose garden she adored, she found her husband's corn liquor jar hidden deep in the surrounding flower bed. That was enough. She liked to keep her yard pretty. She took the jar to the storeroom, poured away some of the foul drink, and topped it off with rat poisoning. That evening, Harrelson died of excruciating pain, aged just 38.
Gotcha, sucker.
An hour later, Nanny washed out the empty corn liquor jar.
I don't care if you beat me up, but if you dirty my plants, I'm going to kick your ass.
After Frank's death, little is known about Nanny's escapades over the next 2 years. There is a speculation that she may have traveled by rail north to New York, as far west as to Idaho. There is also speculation that she may have married a man named Hendricks. There are certain records that indicate this, but police never followed up on it. So in 1947, in response to another Lonely Hearts column, Nanny met laborer Arnie Lanning in Lexington, North Carolina. They married 2 days later. They moved fast.
I guess so.
Arlie believed their marriage was set in heaven. However, this was not the case for Arlie. Loved his alcohol and he loved his women. But this time, whenever things got hectic, Nanny would pack a suitcase and disappear to locations unknown, and sometimes for months on end. Sometimes she would leave without saying anything, and others she would leave a crumpled note under the salt shaker, simply writing, "Gone." Arlie would occasionally receive cablegrams asking for him to send her money, or others would tell him that she would be home soon. When she did come home, Arlie would simply shrug hello if he wasn't passed out on the couch from drinking. They would play the loving couple for a while. Nanny acted like the perfect wife and would explain her trips as visits to friends or family. This was partly true, for on occasion she would go and visit her sister Dovey in Gladstone, Alabama, who had cancer, or she would go and stay with Arlie's 84-year-old mother, who lived nearby and would help her with house cleaning and canning. So according to thecrimelibrary.org, her favorite pastime was television. That was brought into...
I think they call it a television.
They do call it a television, TV.
Oh, boy.
So that Wonderbox that was brought into American homes, live stage shows, teleplays, and stand-up comedians. When a love story was to be aired, one didn't dare bother Nanny. She would pull up her most comfortable chair, a plate of leftovers, and her pack of Camels, and the ashtray, and lose herself in the grayscale kaleidoscope of heartthrobs and kisses. That world had yet to take seed in Nanny's world, but at least she could envision it more focally now, compliments of her RCA. Nanny was an avid churchgoer in Lexington and had become close with the minister's family. During Arlie's sober periods, he would attend church with her and go to events like the tea socials and picnics held by the Ladies' Auxiliary. But there was always whispers amongst the attendees, for they did not know if Nanny knew of Arlie's seedy past, and no one wanted to tell her, for they feared it would break her little heart. Behind closed doors and quiet conversation, Lanning was the town's villain, and she was its travailing martyr. If they only knew.
They only knew.
When Arlie passed away in February 1950, the town turned up for the funeral only for Nanny.
Poor Miss Nanny.
Yes.
She's all sad.
The heartbroken widow. It wasn't for Arlie. It was believed that he died of heart failure. Of course, something had to cause the heart failure. But the doctor said there was no need for an autopsy, for there was no suspicion involved with his death. A number of things could be to blame for him lying in pain for a few days before passing away. Most likely, it was the dangerous flu virus that was sweeping the state.
Could be gas, too.
Totally.
Stuff is dangerous.
Bad case of gas is not good.
Uh-uh.
I mean, if you hold that stuff in, you could blow up. He had all the symptoms of the flu, the sweating, the vomiting, the dizziness, and besides that, his body was not in the best shape. His stomach was already half gone, and his heart had already weakened from the quote-unquote, the drink.
The drink.
At the funeral, Nanny said, "He just sat down one morning to drink a cup of coffee and eat a bowl of prunes I especially prepared for him." Nanny admitted to her neighbors gathering around the coffin, "Up until then, why, let me tell you, he looked in fine shape. Then, well, 2 days later, dead. I nursed him, Believe me, I nursed him, but I failed. And for an extra touch, she dabbed her eyes with her little kerchief.
As you do.
Poor Arlie. You know what he said to me before he breathed his last? Nanny, he said, Nanny, it must have been the coffee.
Must have been.
On April 21st, 8 weeks after Arlie passed, their home had burned to ashes, destroying everything in the home with the exception of Nanny's TV. She stated that she had taken the TV to be repaired that day. After the house burned down, Nanny went to stay with Arlie's mother in a neighboring town, and a few weeks later, the insurance for the home arrived, made out to Arlie, and as noted in his will, it was willed to his sister. Shortly after Arlie's mother suddenly passed away in her sleep, Nanny cashed the check illegally. Once again, Nanny packed up her TV and left, leaving North Carolina in her rearview mirror. This woman just leaves a massive destruction everywhere she goes.
She's like a bulldozer with an RCA.
But conveniently, she took her TV, her prized possession, out
Gotta take that.
the day the house burned to the ground.
Oh, yeah.
So Nanny headed to her sister Dovey's in Gladstone, Alabama, with her TV in tow. While there, she took care of her sister who was fighting cancer. She nursed and cared for her bedridden sister, but her condition continued to worsen and take a downward spiral. Dovey died on June 30th, 1950, in her sleep. Failing to find her soulmate through the classified ads, Nanny decided to switch things up a bit.
She tried Craigslist.
I don't think that was a thing yet, but pretty much. Nanny, now 47, her hips had widened, she wore glasses, and her once pretty profile now featured a double chin. Hey, what's wrong with a double chin?
Yeah.
Noticing that she no longer turned the heads as she used to. However, Nanny still possessed a girlish giggle, and she knew how to use it to charm. She had mastered the art of turning on the sparkle in her eyes at just the right moments. She thought it might be time to seek the admiration of a more mature kind of man. The charm of a curly-headed boy seemed to be outdated. She figured that she might have needed this all along. She needed that more mature, more genuine man. So she joined the Diamond Circle Club. It's
Diamond Cougar Club.
It's a singles club, and it was here that she encountered her fourth husband, Richard Morton of Emporia, Kansas.
32-year-old Richard Morton.
Morton, a former salesman known for his usually calm demeanor, made a different kind of purchase this time. He was captivated. Nanny was the woman for him, and to show it, he wrote the Diamond Circle requesting to remove his and Nanny's names from the available list. He thanked them for introducing him to the sweetest and most wonderful woman he has ever met. They got married in October of 1952, and she moved into his small home in Emporia. Richard, as stated by crimelibrary.org, was half American Indian. He was tall, dark, and handsome, with eyes that pierced like arrows straight into her romantic daydreams. As well, he bought her clothes, jewelry, and knickknacks, never seeming worried about the price of the adornments he thrust upon her. In reality, however, waiting around the corner within months of their marriage, Morton manifested as flat as the countryside. He was, despite his flair, broke, deep in debt to everyone, and when he did buy her a bauble on whatever credit he managed to effect through charming the bank or people in town or whatever.
They call it swindling.
Swindling, yes. He also bought a double for another girl that he had stashed away in town.
Uh-oh.
Morton's occasional trips to the stores in his Chevy pickup truck to buy this and that for the house and farm stuff struck Nanny as being rather lengthy for casual jaunts. They became more prolonged each time. If I prodded as to why, he would simply reply with an air of apathy. Oh, I just dawdled, I guess. She investigated and discovered that he was seeing someone he had known before he married and seemed to have no intentions of dropping her. Nanny had made a mistake, but Morton had made a bigger one. She picked a phony. He chose a killer.
She needs to start doing background checks. Come on.
Right.
Seriously. This is ridiculous.
2 months after she tied the knot, Nanny was back to seeking affection from the lovelorn columns in the Kansas newspaper. She would be sure to fetch the mail daily, and if a letter would arrive, she would sneak off to the bathroom to read it. She would swoon over the letters from the possible suitors that believed that she was a recent widow, with offers to care for her and to sweep her away with marital bliss and happiness. Richard's fate would be saved for a few months, as Nanny's father, James, had passed away, and her mother, Lou, announced that she was coming to move in with the new couple. So Nanny's plot to murder Richard and move on to the next suitor was on hold. In January of 1953, Lou arrived. However, after a few days, she fell ill with a chronic stomach pain and died.
Uh-oh.
A short 3 months later, Richard Morton died of similar symptoms.
What?
Can you believe it?
Can't.
Sam Doss was a strong, steady, and religious man. He didn't chase after women. He never smoked, never drank, and he didn't play dice. And he did not use foul language.
I thought there'd be more giggling in this story.
I'm sorry.
Where's the giggling?
You got to giggle. You got to make the giggles.
I thought this was Giggling Granny. Nanny band. Bam, bam, Nanny Granny.
Naughty Nanny.
Naughty Nanny.
He cared about how
Naughty
he
Nanny, the banging granny.
she is a banging granny, that's for sure. She likes
Boom,
her.
chicka, wow, wow.
And then she bangs him right into the ground.
Yeah.
Jeez. So he didn't play dice. He didn't use bad language. He cared about how he looked. He was careful with his money, stayed calm, loved nature, and saw good in almost everything. Sam had been one of Nanny's secret pen pals. After Richard Morton passed away, she hopped on the first bus to meet Sam in his hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and she gets around.
She gets around.
Yeah. He proposed to her in June of 1953. At first, he seemed like a refreshing change from...
don't they all? I mean, there's a pattern in this story.
There is a pattern in this story.
These guys get a little nanny and then they're like running for the hills.
Right? So at first he seemed like a refreshing change from her previous partners. He had a steady job as a state highway inspector. He spoke softly. He wore neckties, helped around the house, and unlike others, he didn't act like the king of the house and was neither threatening nor violent. Nanny was bored. However, Sam had his own set of habits that annoyed the less conservative Nanny. He didn't believe in reading cheap magazines or romance novels, considered them a waste of time. He saw radio and television as tools for enriching the mind, so comedies and love stories were off limits. Bedtime was strictly at 9:30 p.m., a routine he followed like clockwork and expected Nanny to follow too. Even sex was scheduled. His spending habits were strict as well. The electric fan was off limits until temperatures became unbearable, and lights were only turned on when entering a room and immediately turned off when leaving. Well, isn't that what you're supposed to do?
Supposed to, but who wants to do that?
Light up the house.
Jeez.
When reading, only the lamp beside the easy chair would be on, keeping the rest of the room dark. Expensive furniture meant dollies were everywhere to protect the upholstery. When the strict penny pinching and die-hard lifestyle became too much, Nanny took a break and went back home to Alabama. It was likely a strategic move, and it worked. At the moment she left, Sam followed her with letters begging for forgiveness. To prove he was serious, he opened up his wallet to let her enjoy the life she was used to. When she complained that he still controlled the finances, he rearranged his bank account to give her equal freedom. He even took out 2 life insurance policies, naming her as the beneficiary.
Oh, he just signed his death certificate.
Right.
He gone now.
He gone. One cool summer evening, Sam cleaned his dinner plate from the meal that Nanny had made him and enjoyed a piece of prune cake that she had also made. Later that evening, he had wrenching stomach pains and spasms that were ungodly. He was bedridden for days and lost 16 pounds. At his doctor's instructions, he went to the hospital where he stayed for 23 days. He was diagnosed with a severe infection of the digestive tract. He was released on October 5th, and Nanny made him a welcome home dinner, stating that this will get you back on your feet in a jiffy as she passed him a cup of coffee. He sipped the coffee in between bites of his welcome home dinner. Sam passed away that evening before midnight. His doctor was puzzled to hear that his patient had passed away and did not believe it was from natural causes. He ordered an autopsy. In his intestines and stomach, he found the remains of a pork roast dinner and enough arsenic to kill a team of horses. Nanny,
If she would have just did it right the first time.
Nanny, unable to explain where the arsenic came from, was promptly arrested. Again, as stated by crimelibrary.org, at first, Nanny refused to acknowledge her role in Sam Doss's poisoning. He was her husband, she said, and she wouldn't have harmed him, but the police wouldn't let up. Arsenic, they remind her, does not come naturally with pork, meat, or coffee beans. In fact, when Sam was admitted to the hospital a month earlier, he had just devoured a plate full of her prune cake. Were they poisoned too, Nanny? They asked. Nanny says, I don't know what you're talking about, and she giggled at the ridiculousness of their line of questioning. Me? Poison? Hour after hour, they drilled her, trying to get her to pay attention to them and never mind the copy of the romance magazine she kept thumbing through. Put the magazine down, Nanny, and listen to us. Nanny, look at us. Why did you kill Doss? Ordinarily, any one of the investigators wouldn't have put up with this crap. They would have ripped the magazine out of the suspect's hand and flung it into the trash can. And then if the suspect did not open up, they might damn well follow the magazine into the same spot. But it was difficult to get rough with this sweet grandmotherly type. That giggle, the harmless, innocent giggle. Oh boy. Nanny, we've been here for hours now. Aren't you getting tired? You killed him. We know you killed him. You know you killed him. Oh, boys.
Just admit it.
Oh, boys. Come on now. I killed nobody. I don't know why you think I did that, she fluttered.
Hey, Paranormies. I'm Brittany.
And I'm Alexa.
And we're the hosts of They Don't Stay Dead.
We're a paranormal podcast from Australia, and we've made it our mission to share with you all the real-life ghost stories and haunted locations from our home, as well as encounters with supernatural beings and reports of unknown mysteries.
From haunted asylums and ghost ships to big cat cryptids and alien encounters, there's something for everyone. We release new episodes every Thursday, and you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Be sure to check out our Instagram at They Don't Stay Dead for weekly updates. We get a little bit spooky and a lot silly. So join us for some laughs and a tale of the unknown.
Stay spooky, Paranormies.
Special Agent Ray Page, heading the investigation, signaled his own men aside and stepped forward. He lit a cigarette and sat beside her at the long table in the dim, tunnel-like interrogation room, rubbed a pair of tired eyes. He noted with surprise that, unlike himself and his squad, she had not wilted at all. We've made phone calls, Nanny, and we've learned that Mr. Doss was your 4th husband to die of the same symptoms. We're putting 2 and 2 together, Nanny, and it looks like we might have come up with 4 Arsenic, Nanny. We believe that they all died of arsenic. It would be easier if you admitted what you had done ahead of time. I mean, before we have to find out ourselves. Are you saying, young man, that I killed all of my husbands? And she giggled again. You're a nice-looking young man, but
You
so
want
foolish.
to get married?
Are you single?
You want to take Nanny on?
She's like dancing around to that Beyonce song, All the Single Ladies. And she flipped over a page of the Romantic Hearts publication before her. Paige didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Was she insane? Or was she just the greatest actress who ever lived? Moreover, Betty Davis, he thought, he'd seen some cool cucumbers in his days, but this woman had them all beat. It was time to get serious with old Mother Arsenic. He reached over, drew the magazine from her hands. No more reading, Nanny. This isn't the Christian Science reading room. You're going to answer us. She looked at him, this time not giggling.
Oh, she pissed.
Nanny, he went on, there are others too, aren't there? A lot of people around you dropped dead over the last couple decades, and their ghosts are coming back to haunt you. They're here, Nanny, in this room. Put 'em to rest, Nanny. Put 'em to rest. For a moment, their eyes met. Paige detected in a breath those twinkling granny eyes solidified into something nasty. A devil lurked just within, and he was going to yank it out, and she knew it. She sighed, heaved, and nodded. All right, she said. Then she giggled again, those eyes turning innocent once more. But at least she began to talk. She confessed to poisoning Doss's coffee, but not out of maliceness. He wouldn't let me watch my favorite programs on the television, she commenced. He made me sleep without the fan on the hottest nights. He was a miser. And well, what's a woman to do under these conditions?
True. Very true.
The detectives in the rooms exchanged glances, eyebrows raised. She's serious, isn't she? Their expressions asked. Okay, there, you have it, she laughed, in the same demeanor as a child, admitting she stole her sister's hair ribbon. Can I have my magazine back now? First, tell us about the other husbands, Paige returned. Nanny thought a second. If I do, will you give me back my romantic hearts? I promise, he said. She shrugged and smiled, said it's a deal, and then she winked at him. Then she told him about Richard Morton, Arlie Lanning, Frank Harrelson as well, all men who she first admired, but then they turned out to all to be duds. All she ever wanted was romance, a man to love her, but instead, all she got is what she describes as all dullards. Each and every one of them. If their ghosts are in this room, they're either drunk or they're sleeping, she said. Paige, shaking his head, handed her back her magazine. Looking at her and talking to her, detectives could not believe that Nanny could be a killer. Terry Manners relates in The Deadlier Than the Male, but now the confessions just poured out. She had killed 4 husbands. At one stage, an officer asked, which one are you going to tell us about next, Nanny? The morning after the confessions, Paige and the other detectives from Tulsa fanned out to Kansas, North Carolina, and Alabama to take part in exhumations. Is that how you say that word?
Exhumation? I don't know.
They took part in exhuming all of her husbands, her mother, Lou, her sister, Dovey, her grandson, Robert, and her mother-in-law, Arlie Lanning's mother. Arsenic traces were heavy in every one of the deceased spouses and in her mother. Bodies of the other family members, while not indicating toxic substance, all appeared to have perished by asphyxia. The strong suspicion animated that they were all probably smothered in their sleep. Several days after Nanny's arrest, a man by the name of Josh Keel stepped forth from North Carolina looking very relieved. He was a dairy farmer who had been corresponding with Nanny after finding her ad in a Lonely Hearts column. She had told him that she was a widow and was yearning for a good man with whom she would settle. She sent him a homemade cake, and that was why Keel was relieved, as because it hadn't been his favorite apple, but it was prune, or else he might have keeled over too. Her first husband, Charlie Braggs, the husband who got away, as Nanny's family historian Sherby Green calls him, was the prime reporter's material. As the laboratory findings from Nanny's corpses came in, the newspapers swarmed up on Braggs for his take on the case. His opinions and recollections of his wife provided excellent, sometimes even witty material for column after column. He said that she was always running off with one man or another, never home, and it was about town more than it was about me, he exclaimed, when one reporter asked him if it was true that their marriage had been adulterous. And anyway, to tell you the truth, I was glad when she was off. It got to the point where I was afraid to eat anything she cooked. I smelt a rat. Smart guy. He asked about the bodies of his 2 daughters, if they would be exhuming them along with the others, but the government had obviously figured out that they had enough on Mrs. Doss to send her away for a long time. The state of Oklahoma deciding the case centered its allegations on the death of Doss only, who died in Tulsa. The states where the litter of victims were uncovered still wanted her for the respective deaths within their jurisdiction, but she was never tried outside of Oklahoma, however. When newshounds finally caught up with Nanny after the indictment, they asked her what she thought should be done with her for poisoning Doss. Her answer came in the form of a familiar humor. Grinning into the flashbulb, she replied, "Why, anything. Anything they care to do is all right by me." So again, trying to turn on her charm. After a quartet of psychiatrists diagnosed her mentally sane, her trial date was set for June 2nd, 1955 in the criminal court of Tulsa, Oklahoma. But on May 17th, she decided to forget the hassle and simply, just because her lawyers didn't know how else to advise, she pled guilty. After a brief hearing, Judge Elmer Adams sentenced her to life imprisonment, barring the electric chair because of her sex. According to Sherby Williams, Nanny spent the rest of her days in the Oklahoma State Penitentiary, still dreaming of her eternal love. Nannie Doss died of leukemia in the prison's hospital ward on June 2nd, 1965. She's buried at Oak Hills Memorial Park in McAlester, Oklahoma. The press dubbed her as the Giggling Granny because of her demeanor during the police interviews. She laughed and smiled every time she described the crimes that she committed. She was also coined the Lonely Hearts Killer, the Jolly Black Widow, and Lady Bluebeard.
Wow.
So that is my story of the Giggling Granny.
That was pretty good.
How can you just off people like that? Like, just no heart, no nothing, just whoop, you're done. Whoop, you're done.
I guess you just got tired.
I mean, the husbands, okay, so I'm gonna, play devil's advocate. Abusive, drunk, cheating, which she did as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could see if that was her case, but what about these innocent children, her sister who's dying of cancer, her mother who just wanted a place to stay? I mean, come on.
Pretty crazy.
But I don't know. But I guess I didn't realize that back in those days that they had an option for like online dating.
Mm.
It was just snail mail dating.
Yeah.
But that's my story.
It was a good one.
All right. Do we have any other news?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Other than check out our merch, bonfire.com/store/Total Conundrum.
Total Conundrum.
And hopefully the video works out in this and you can see us making fools of ourselves.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
think it worked this time.
Nice. I'm starting to lose my voice. That was a long story.
That was a long one.
All right, everybody.
All right.
Keep on creeping on. We love you.
Hang loose.
Bye.
Bye. Love you. Thanks for hanging out with us here at Total Conundrum. Please make sure to check out our website and blog at totalconundrum.com for news, upcoming events, merch, bloopers, and additional hysteria. You never know what will pop up, so be sure to follow along. If you want to show your support for Total Conundrum and gain access to all of our bonus content, please visit our Patreon page. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The links are available in our show notes. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, or stories to share, please email us at contact@totalconundrum.com. Episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate the love. Keep on creeping on, mother cluckers.